Hello, good evening, my dear friends. Welcome back to our book club, Celestine Prophecy. Hope you enjoyed yesterday's session, and today we will continue our journey with two wonderful masters. Today, the book club is going to facilitated by Pranavi and Devi. So yesterday I haven't had a chance to introduce Devi as well. So today I'm going to introduce Pranavi and Devi and a few words about them, right? So whenever I see youngsters coming and doing this kind of work, right, it really feels amazing. And before going to the session, I would like to say a few words about Pranavi. Thank you, Pranavi. Thank you so much for joining. Amazing. You're looking so great. Yes. So, friends, Pranavi is a computer science student in UGA, University of Georgia, and also completed a course in Harvard University. Wow. And recently, she wrote a book called The Growth Code. And also, that book is related on self mastery. And her passions is to become successful entrepreneur and make big impact on the world by helping others and get back into their spiritual path, my dear friends. uh, Such a young age, like how old are you, Pranavi?
I'm 18.
18. So 18, and then when did you start writing this book?
I started at 17.
17. Friends, she wrote this book when she was 17, and that book is available on Amazon. I am going to post that link in the group. Please go ahead and read this book. Amazing. And if 17 years old can have such a great knowledge and wisdom how to be strong, and that knowledge is definitely going to help us. And what inspired you to write this book, Pranavi?
I've actually wrote it based on my own path that I've read my books through and how I progressed through my spiritual path. So I wanted to accumulate all that information and give it to the people who are just starting out. So it's like a blueprint of self-mastery, essentially.
And how did the name came?
The
Growth
name,
Code.
yeah, it's basically the self-mastery blueprint for growth.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. So I will also introduce Devi now. So Devi, you there?
Hi everyone. You
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, Devi. So isn't it amazing? Pranavi is here and she wrote a book, and then
Wow, yeah,
she's just 17 years old, and she's a computer science student. What an amazing
wow.
thing.
Yeah, so nice to know that. And I'm sure again, this is something supposed to happen, I guess, to meet you and get inspired a little bit from you. So thank you for joining.
Wonderful. So let me also take some time to introduce Devi. Devi Prasad is an educator, entrepreneur, and sports enthusiastic with a deep passion for spirituality and Vedanta. A graduate of IIT Roorkee, he holds an MBA from the Indian School of Business and Queen's University. He currently works as product manager in Canada, a dedicated practitioner of Vipassana meditation and follower of Swami Vivekananda. He helps wisdom with action in all areas of life. Inspired by his dad, friends, and extended family, he strives to be a caring husband, a supportive son, and kind to all. Thank you so much, Devi, for being here, and looking forward to hear about your sessions. So we will begin with Pranavi, I guess. So Pranavi, please just give a quick recap from yesterday, like what you learned, maybe in 1 2 minutes, and then you can continue the journey.
Yes, Sandy. So yesterday we talked about the first to the fourth insights. Um, so the first insight shows us that coincidences guide our lives. The second makes us aware of a deeper spiritual reality. The third says that the universe is pure energy. And the fourth insight reveals how humans compete for energy. And this chapter will be talking about the fifth insight. So, this chapter begins in darkness, just before the dawn. The author and Will quietly pack their jeep, trying to leave unnoticed. But suddenly they noticed Jensen's trucks and Marjorie in the street. And then soldiers arrive, and there's gunfire and so much chaos in the streets. The author finds Marjorie and tries to protect her, but in the confusion, she accidentally gets captured by the soldiers. And Will also speeds away in his jeep with the soldiers chasing him, leaving the author utterly alone and hunted. And at this point, he is exhausted and desperate. So he climbs up the mountain ridge to escape, and soldiers close in. And he also feels that he has no strength left. At the top of the ridge, cornered and ready to give up, he accepts the possibility of death. But this moment of surrender leads to a breakthrough. Instead of fear, he suddenly feels a shift in his body. His body feels light, his posture is straight and effortless, and the world around him feels incredibly close, the sky, the clouds, and even the moon. He senses he is connected to everything. So often, when we reach our lowest point and surrender control, that's when the higher awareness can break through. And the fifth insight essentially teaches us that in moments of despair, we can actually open up to a greater source of energy beyond ourselves. So, as he sits on that mountain peak, his vision expands. He feels the earth not as an idea, but as a living round body beneath him. The trees swaying in the wind feel like the hairs on his skin. The entire universe seems to be looking at itself through his eyes. He realizes that his personal body is just a small part of a much larger body, the universe itself. And in that moment, he feels an overwhelming sense of love and unity. And while in this state, he also experiences what feels like a memory of the universe's evolution. He sees the hydrogen atoms forming the first stars, the stars exploding and creating heavier elements like carbon, the earth cooling, the water forming, and the lightning sparking the amino acids, the beginnings of life. And the plants were also emerging, filling the atmosphere with oxygen. The animals were evolving, then amphibians crawling onto the land, and then reptiles and mammals. And finally, humans standing at the pinnacle. So the author realizes that all of the evolution is a movement of the energy into higher and higher vibrations. So, from hydrogen, the simplest form of matter, to the most complex human consciousness, the entire universe has been striving towards more awareness. And after this overwhelming vision, the author goes down the mountain ridge and meets Father Sanchez, who is a priest that helps him make sense of what he had just experienced. Sanchez explains that what you felt is exactly what the fifth insight describes. He tells the author that the mystical consciousness has always been described by spiritual mystics throughout the history, but now it's becoming more common. These experiences show us that we can connect to an energy source beyond without competing for the energy with each other. And at the mission where Priest Sanchez lives, the author begins to learn practical ways to reconnect with this energy. He notices how the priest eats slowly, savoring every bite. One priest, in fact, his name is John, explains that food itself contains energy. And when we appreciate it deeply, tasting it fully, and being thankful, we absorb more of that energy. Prayer before meals, as John says, is not just about gratitude. It's actually about making eating a holy act that brings energy into the body. Then John shows the author how to connect with a tree. At first, the author protests, saying that he can't make himself love something. But John explains that love isn't forced, it is allowed. So, by remembering the love that he felt on the mountain ridge and focusing on the appreciation, the author actually begins to feel love for the tree. And then he learns the deeper truth that when you love and appreciate something, you don't just take in the energy, but you also send it back. So, love is essentially an exchange. The energy flows between you and the world, strengthening both. And finally, Father Sanchez ties it all together. He reminds the author of the sequence of the insights so far. So, the first insight shows us the coincidences guide our lives. The second insight makes us aware of the deeper spiritual reality that we have forgotten over time. The third insight says that the universe is pure energy. The fourth insight reveals how humans compete for this energy. And now the fifth insight shows us that we don't have to compete. We can tap directly into the universal energy through love and appreciation. So Sanchez explains that mystical breakthroughs, like the one the author experienced on the ridge, are glimpses of what is possible. We can't live in that state all the time, but by consciously raising our energy and appreciating life and staying open, we can gradually return to it, making it more permanent. That is the fifth chapter. The next chapter is about clearing the past, which is the sixth insight. So, this chapter begins with the author and Father Sanchez driving through the Andes Mountains. Along the road, they meet two people that Sanchez knows, named Julia and a younger man named Rolando. So, Julia is a warm and kind woman, and Rolando stares at the author intensely, almost like demanding his energy. The author feels uneasy and he responds by withdrawing himself. So he becomes distant and mysterious. He avoids opening up to Rolando, hoping that Rolando will keep digging to figure him out. And after they leave, Sanchez tells the author bluntly that this is your control drama. So the author actually has a habit of playing aloof, being he withholds his information and acts mysterious so others will give him attention and energy by trying to understand him. But this habit actually backfires. By being aloof, he missed the chance to connect with Julia and Rolando and gain important information about Will, who he got separated from during the chaos. Sanchez then explains where these dramas come from, our childhood. As children, parents and family members were often caught up in their own dramas, draining our energy. And to survive, we developed our own strategy to pull the energy back. So the author reflects on his childhood. His father was always a critical person, questioning him and finding his faults. And his mother, too, had the same style. And Sanchez points out that his parents were both interrogators, and in response, the author became aloof. He learned to stay back, stay vague, and avoid being criticized. And we don't invent these dramas randomly, they're actually survival strategies. Sanchez then lays out the four main dramas described in the manuscript. So the first drama is the intimidator. These are the most aggressive type. So usually they control people by threatening or forcing them. And that's how they get their energy. The second type is the interrogator. They're less aggressive, but they're always probing and criticizing others to get their energy. The third type is the aloof type, passive and withholding information to draw others in. So they act and stay mysterious so they can get others' attention. And the fourth type is the poor me type. So these are the most passive and they gain energy by making others feel guilty and them making them look poor in front of them, others. And everyone uses at least one of these strategies depending on what worked in their family. The author finally sees his own pattern clearly and realizes how much it has slowed down his growth. So, the first step of the sixth insight is to bring our control drama into consciousness. And once we see how it is formed, we can stop acting it out and open ourselves to a higher path. And Sanchez and the author continue their journey and arrive at the breathtaking ruins of Machu Picchu. Here, they actually meet Father Carl, who is a friend of Sanchez and who is also a young priest that uh, made it his mission to help people discover their control dramas and find their true selves. So, Father Carl explains that to move beyond our dramas, we must reinterpret our past from a higher perspective. Our parents weren't just people who drained us, they also stood for certain truths and values. And by understanding what each parent represented, we can see that our life purpose lies in finding a higher synthesis of this truth. Every person is born into a family for a reason. Our parents' unfinished struggles give us the evolutionary question that we must solve in our own lives. And with Father Carl's help, the author re examines his parents' lives. His father believed that life was about fun, adventure, and enjoying the moment. And his mother, in contrast, was deeply religious and devoted to service and sacrifice. So, caught between these two, the author became aloof, meaning distant, avoiding taking a stand. But now he realized the higher truth that his life is about finding a spirituality that is both self enhancing and service oriented. So, a way of living that combines his father's joy of life with his mother's devotion. This is the essence of the sixth insight that we find our spiritual identity by clearing out old repeated patterns. Father Carl then shares his own background. His father was focused on accomplishment, while his mother was more mystical and intuitive. At first, Father Carl became an interrogator, always probing and criticizing. But eventually, he realized that his life purpose was to combine both, to show people how inner guidance can lead to a meaningful accomplishment. He also shares Will's story. So, Father Carl and Will actually had a prior experience together, so they know each other. And he also shares Will's story. So, Will's father was a Western thinker who believed in progress and perfection, and his mother was more Eastern in the outlook. She valued peace and detachment. And Will's life, therefore, was about reconciling the East and West. So, progress guided by spiritual surrender. And each of us inherits two seemingly opposing philosophies from our parents. And our life mission is to reconcile them into a higher truth. Finally, Father Carl explains the process of clearing the past. So, first, we must look back at our lives as one story. Second, we trace the interests, friends, and coincidences that shape us. And third, we must reinterpret these experiences of the question that our parents left us. So, for the author, everything he had done, his interest in mysteries as a young kid, his studies in sociology, and even his work with troubled children, was preparing him for this journey. So, his whole life was pointing him towards the quest for a self enhancing spirituality. And when we reinterpret our past, we see that every twist and turn was guiding us towards the evolutionary question, our true spiritual mission. And by the end of this chapter, the author actually reads the written text of the sixth insight, which was given to him by Father Carl. It confirms everything that Sanchez and Carl taught him. To move forward spiritually, we must clear the past. That means becoming aware of our control drama, understanding how it formed in childhood, seeing what our parents stood for beyond their dramas, and discovering a higher synthesis that we are meant to live. This is how we find our true spiritual identity and fully step into the evolutionary path. So, just a brief recap of chapter 5 and 6. The author escapes danger, and at his lowest point, he had a mystical breakthrough. He also experienced the unity of the universe and the memory of evolution. And at the mission, he learns from Father Sanchez and the priest that mystical consciousness is real, that love and appreciation are the key to energy, and that this is how humanity carries evolution forward. The fifth insight teaches us that we don't need to fight for energy from others. By appreciating beauty, savoring life, and choosing love, we can connect directly to the universe and take a part in the larger evolutionary story. And as for chapter 6, the author clearly saw his aloofness tendency, how he was withdrawn. He realized that his parents left him with the task of combining joy with spirituality. And through Father Carl's guidance, he learned that every life event has been preparing him for this very mission. So, the sixth insight reminds us that we are not accidents of our upbringing. We were born to our families for a reason. And by clearing the past, we can finally see our life as a part of the universe's greater evolution. And this realization sets the stage for the next chapter, where the author learns how to stay truly connected with this higher energy, even when life's challenges threaten to pull him back into the fear. And that is the essence of chapter 5 and 6.
Yeah. Wow. What a beautiful narration, Pranavi. Like, to summarize the book so nicely, that I could just recollect everything. And I really understood the control drama part more clearly when you also explained. And it also took me back into my childhood, how I was brought up, and what were the what values my parents gave, and what kind of control drama sometimes I get into. So yeah, it was nicely said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So yeah, so next, moving on to the next chapter, the chapter 7. Chapter begins with the author feeling low on energy and unsure what to do next. So the two priests, Father Sanchez and Father Carl, help him showing how to gain energy, right? So Father Sanchez tells from his experience how to gain energy. First thing is, he asks him to focus on the beauty of the world and breathe in that energy, right? So understand the current situation and the presence of everything, and appreciate that beauty, and breathe in that energy, and feel connected with the love. Like love, background emotion has to be love, right? So that's the foundation, and that's how you start gaining the energy. When full of this energy, the mind becomes clear, right? And the helpful thoughts or intuitions come through, and sometimes, like, gentle daydreams and sudden ideas also guide you what to do next. So Father Sanchez says focus on these things: intuitions, daydreams, sudden ideas, or images that can become your guiding light. And so the real challenge is to pay attention to this important, and also the one thing that important questions you hold. So uh, you have in your life to move forward, right? So basically, you have to know what question you hold, and you have to find the answer for that. And he also says that answers will come if you hold the right question. And when you're not getting answers, that means you're not holding the right questions, right? So that was his suggestion. And then the author watches for some coincidences and intuition. So he asks what are the main questions that he has at that point of time. So first question he had is, where is Will? So he's obviously separated. He got separated from Will, and he wants to know where is Will, and how is he doing. He also has a question about Marjorie. So she, her safety and where she is. And he also had a third question, that why some of the people are against this manuscript, and why are they trying to destroy, right? Is there any way that what part of manuscript that people think is threatening to them, and he wants to understand that, right? And he believes by knowing that part, he feels he can convince the people who are trying to destroy the manuscript that the interpretation might be wrong, or he can convince that the manuscript is a good thing and should not be suppressed or destroyed. So he had these things, and he has intuition that uh, will is holding a ninth manuscript, ninth inside and running in the forest. So he gets this intuition. So with that, he starts traveling in one particular direction, and suddenly he gets caught by soldiers, and then he's brought into a prison, and he meets a person called Pablo, a young man who also believes in the manuscript. And Pablo explains that dreams are important. He also is familiar about the seventh insight. So he explains that dreams are very important, especially the scary ones or the upsetting ones, because they can carry the message about what someone is doing wrong in their life. Uh, so he especially inquires about some of the dreams he have been getting. So they both are in prison, and the author keeps getting some dreams and some intuitions, and Pablo keeps questioning them and brings out the message from the author, right? And finally, he said, yeah, one of the question he had was how is Marjorie, and is she safe or not? And suddenly, when these two people, author and Pablo, uh, go go for a meal, they also suddenly see Marjorie there, and then one of his coincidence comes live, intuition comes live, and then he learns to pay attention to not only real events but also dreams and daydreams, as they can show what is about to happen or what he needs to know, right? So then, with Pablo's help, he also learns that negative thoughts and fear should be stopped right away and replaced with the thoughts of good outcomes. Unless the negative thought keeps coming in which case it may be a serious warning. So he question, like the author also asks, okay, what about the negative thoughts that comes? And yeah, Pablo said you have to immediately force your way out of that and try to put a positive thought, right, and stop continuing down the negative thought path. And if it comes up again and again, then you have to consider it as a serious one, right? So that was one of the message. And then, yeah, at the end, the chapter ends, and Pablo hints at what the next lesson is. That's the eighth chapter. He gives the hint that learning how to send energy to help others, and that one danger is becoming too dependent. So one of the danger is becoming too dependent on another person for growth. So codependent, like you're depending on other person, and it becomes dangerous for your growth. And the author is also left with some new questions, and knows he must keep following the flow of energy through positive feelings and watching for signs to find his next answer. So yeah, that was the chapter 7. Uh, Basically, the in short, what we learn from this chapter is that get energy from the nature and love, right? So that's one. Second, know your real life questions. So you have to constantly keep them on top of your head and keep asking those questions, and watch for your dreams and thoughts and coincidences as clues. So those are the ones that guide you in your path, and you have to always stay positive and change the bad thoughts with will and force, right? So you might get these negative thoughts, so you have to keep changing them. And every event bad or a good one, hold some or the other lesson, right? So they have some message for you, and the journey moves forward one insight at a time. So we have to help from others, and we have to keep helping others also. So even Pablo, when he came into prison, so before the author comes, Pablo is already in the prison, right? He was also unsure why he was in the prison. So when he met the author and he helped author experienced the seventh insight, then he learned about his purpose, that, oh, I was supposed to send this message to the author, and that's how he finds the purpose of being in the prison fulfilled, right? So like there is no negative in coming to prison. Like earlier, author thought, oh, this is the end, dead end to his journey, and he's in the prison, so this is end of the world, and he has to go back. So all those negative thoughts were coming. So Pablo finally explains that, see, with you coming to the prison with me, both of our message got exchanged, and both our purpose is fulfilled, and we are moving forward. So that was the chapter 7. And then chapter 8. In chapter 8, yeah, the story of escape. This tells the story of escape, new friendships, and learning new way to treat people, especially those we love and the children, right? So how do we treat them, the ones that we love and the children, and using energy and kindness instead of trying to control each other. So those were the that is the key concept in chapter 8. So the narrator or the author and his friend Marjorie are captured by the soldiers. But after, so basically both the author and the his friend Marjorie were put in a truck, and they were taken to some other place, and by the soldiers, and they stopped somewhere, and suddenly there will be an explosion, and both escapes from that truck, right? And uh, they enter home of a woman named Carla, and that woman has a younger daughter called Marita. Okay, and this is a very fascinating thing. The author expects that the woman Carla, in whose home these people barged in to escape, the author expects them to be surprised um, or afraid or frightened, right? But surprisingly, that person was calm and readily offered help, which means she already knew what was happening, uh, and she knew that she needs to help these two people. And finally, they decided, they shared all the information, and then they decided that the girl, Marla, takes um, both the author and Marjorie to another place where there's a possibility to find the ninth insight, right? So, so all four of them are going in the car, right? And then one interesting incident happens. So Marjorie asks the mother, Carla, what is the age of your daughter? So then, yeah, Marla only, right? So yeah, sorry, Carla, not Marla, sorry, Carla. Sorry, Carla then says, why are you treating her daughter, Marita, as a child? Why don't you ask directly to her, right? So that was the next insight. How we undermine the children, right? How we behave with children is so different. We behave sometimes in a very playful way, and don't answer these questions and don't take them seriously, right? When they come up with questions, maybe some questions that you might not be able to answer, you give some kind of fancy answer, and get the fun out of that, right? And try to hide the truth, lose the energy from that. So the next insight, one of the part of the insight is that we have to be always truthful to the children, and involve them in any of the discussions, right? And especially when we are talking about them. So that was uh, yeah, that was one of the lessons that Carla says. Uh, so every child deserves, and she also tells that every child deserves one-to-one attention. And the author also says that. that's why we have to limit on how many children we have, because if you are not sure that you can give one-to-one attention to the children, then yeah, they might start learning from other children. Like, children are supposed to learn from the adults, and there should always be one adult from whom they are always learning. And when you have too many children, and um, you won't be able to give that attention, so they start learning from other children, and that's not good. So yeah, that is the that is one thing. And then the lessons about love and relationship. So during the journey, what happens is they meet the same person, Julia, both the author and Marjorie, the author's friend, meet Julia, and Julia offers a route to go back to United States. So Julia knows a person who can take anyone to United States safely, and author feels he is not ready to go back yet, but he feels his friend Marjorie needs to go back to her United States, and that's when this insights come, right? So basically they have to separate now. Actually, they figure out that they love each other at this point of time, and they care about each other, and they don't want to separate. But at this point, they have to make a decision, and author struggles to make this decision that he has to continue, and uh, his friend Marjorie has to leave, go back to United States safely, right? And that's when Carla again shares the insight on how our relationship has become codependent. So what we call love, love at first sight that we have, is usually that happens unconsciously. Like, we keep passing energy to each other, and then we start, over a period of time, we start expecting this energy from each other, and then we kind of cut off the source of energy from the universe. Um, and then what happens is, then we enter into the power struggles again, right? And then basically we are basically becoming codependent on each other. So that is what was happening to the author, because his higher purpose was to find out that ninth insight, and but he was struggling to leave her and go. So yeah, the author then suggests that Carla then explains how falling in love feels magical, but sometimes couple end up fighting because they start relying too much on each other for energy and happiness. And that's what the book calls addiction to another person, right? To have the best relationship, people should first learn to fill themselves up with energy from the universe, right? Not just from their partners. Only then will their love be stronger and free from power struggles, right? And Carla says that it's important to have good relationship, good friendships with people of opposite gender, to understand them deeply, rather than dreaming of a perfect partner all the time, right? So you can get that good energy from your friends as well, right? And then uh, yeah, then moving on. Uh, then the book introduces the concept of power of giving energy. So Julia, like the other friend, teaches the author how to give energy by simply appreciating and focusing on the beauty and goodness to others. And when two people do this, both feel happier and see the truth in each other more clearly. So Julia also helps the author deal with people who try to control or intimidate him by naming their control drama. Like, when Julia and author are going to some place, they meet one person who is kind of intimidating and asks questions. Why are you entering this shop? Where are you going? And all that. And as usual, the author has this control drama of aloofness. He tries to play that, and then things were about to go out of control. But Julia steps in and says, "Okay." she recognizes that the other person is playing that control drama of intimidateness, and she labels that and says, "You seem to be very angry. Why are you angry at us? Why can't you ask politely?" Just simply that dialogue that calms him down, right? He stops playing that control drama, right? And then the author learns, okay, when they should not enter into control drama, and when how to identify that they are entering into a control drama. And why this is important was, because if you go back into chapter 6, when the author and the boy Pablo were in the prison, right? There was one priest called Father Costu, who tries to interrogate the author, and the author tries to convince him that the manuscript might not be the good thing, and they get into the argument, and he was unsuccessful in convincing the father there, Kostu. And then he don't know what went wrong. Like, the one of his goal or one of his questions was to convince the people who is trying to suppress that it might not be a bad idea to make this manuscript available to everyone, right? And then he doesn't know how to do that, right? So that was one of these lessons he learns through this, that okay, you have to know when you are entering into the control drama and how to break free from that, right? And then later in the chapter, he also learns about finding answers and messages. um, so later, a group meets a professor corner. So when I say group, Julia uh, and the author meets another professor called Connor, and Father Sanchez enters, right? And Julia teaches that everyone we meet is there for a reason. So everyone you meet, basically, you meet them for a reason. And when we make an eye contact or feel like we recognize someone, that's the point. You should know that this is not happening for chance. This is happening for some reason, right? There is some message that needs to be exchanged between those two people, right? Like, maybe I don't know if you have observed any time, like there is sudden eye contact, or when someone looks familiar, but you ignore those things, right? So those were some cues, actually, that you should exchange the message between them. And yeah, author was forced to do that thing by Julia, and he suddenly learns about where could be the ninth inside be, and that's the Celestian runes, and that clue he gets because of the forcing himself and forcing himself to talk to some stranger with whom he had a eye contact and who looks familiar, and he was hesitant to go and talk, but Julia says, "This is exactly what you should be doing. So go and talk to him." And then he speaks to that professor, and he turns out to be Professor Connor. And yeah, and that's how he finds out uh, where uh, the ninth insight could be. And then there was the last part of the insight was about how to behave in group, right? So again, this was very important because like I said, right, when the author was trying to convince the father, Kostu, why manuscript is a good thing, one of the concern the father said was, if this manuscripts comes out, then everyone is evolving on their own, and basically the father couldn't see how people behave uh, with all these insights in their head in a group dynamic. So he felt that situation could go out of hand, and they don't know. So father was unsure how people would behave, and that was the last part of this insight, that how people can behave in a group who has all the knowledge of insights, right? So the chapter then ends with everyone in a group sharing ideas, giving energy to whoever is speaking and waiting for the return, right? And this way, every member feels supported, and whole group is wiser, right? And they decide what to do next. So Julia wants to go to the Celestian rules because that's where she gets the intuition that, okay, this is where the 19th side could be. Sanchez takes on the task of convincing the powerful uh, priest, that is Sebastian. He is the main priest who is trying to destroy the manuscript, and then the narrator joins the father Sanchez in the journey. So yeah, the important lessons from this were like treat children with full attention and truth, and the other thing is don't rely only on others for energy or happiness. Find it inside first, right? And then talk to new people bravely. Like every meeting might bring an answer you need, right? And appreciate others openly, and energy will flow both ways. And group good groups actually lift up and rather than compete or exclude, right? So these were a few key takeaways from chapter 8. It was a long chapter, but I tried to summarize as much as possible. But yeah, I might have left many things, but yeah, that was the summary.
Pranavi, what do you think?
That was an amazing summary, Auntie. Like I, I literally didn't read much of chapters 7 and 8, but that summarized everything beautifully.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pranavi and Devi, for coming and sharing your knowledge and wisdom on this book, right? Let me start with Pranavi. I'm so grateful to you that I met you. You know,
Me too, Auntie.
you are one of the best fortunate thing happened to me. As Devi was explaining that, when you see someone, you know that person, right? We don't have the answers, but you know it, right? So that is a deeper intensive intuitions, you get it. And then when I saw Pranavi just 2 weeks back, okay, I felt something different. And then there you go, she's doing amazing things. And Pranavi, your sharing was like a healing. Your voice, the way you expressed, and the light you are radiating, I'm sure everybody, like, fell in love with you. Thank you so much, and sharing such a big wisdom in a very simplest form, right? So, reading books and also understanding and trying to give it to others in a simplest way is a great effort. Thank you so much, Pranavi. And Devi, you nailed it. Like, you have covered many, many wonderful things, and I really loved the way you expressed it today. You are totally took us to the area, like as Pranavi said, right? We were just traveling with you, yeah, Pranavi, and only James and Marijan and all those are not there. We are also there. Like
Mm.
you, Pranavi, me, and all these 15 people are all in the Peru. I felt that way. And thank you so much for sharing. So one thing I really loved is that how we treat with our children is so important. And the second thing is whenever we meet anybody, that we have to take it seriously. Like there is a message for us. And the third thing is when we are talking in a group, we have to wait for our turn. We have to let them finish so that the things will go right. Even if you take this in a simple day to day corporate life, right, or anywhere in any organization, we stop listening. We wanted to barge in, we want to interfere and say things like, first to put my things there, then I will take it. So this just a small statement, that when we are silent and one person is talking, we are giving energy to that person. When we are giving that energy, that person is bringing only best, my dear friends. Only best. When you barge in, when you interfere with that person, definitely, that energy pattern is changing, and that is where the things are creating. And thank you so much for sharing that so beautifully, Devi. And we will open the stage for all of our friends to share how they feel about you guys sharing and what they learned. So, friends, unmute yourself and you can share.
Auntie, I would like to share something.
Yes.
So I really liked the part where Devi explained about the seventh insight that teaches us that when we are filled with energy and clarify all our questions and also trust our intuition, life moves us exactly where we need to be. I actually felt that a lot. I resonated with that one.
So going into jail is also not a wrong thing. It is an amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what author realized. Yeah.
So there is nothing wrong in the universe or anywhere, only wrong in our thoughts. How we think. Wonderful, wonderful. So friends, I think you can unmute yourself and share. Let me check.